The college football show is what we call it for good reason. Is it the best? That's up to you to decide. It is the college football show. Appreciate you being here Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. All right, gather in. Comments and questions are welcome as always. And I got to tell you, we've done this since the conclusion of conference media days, but starting next week will be the time to be here every day, 10 a.m. Eastern Time. Cannot emphasize that enough. Who will talk more college football than us? Who will talk better college football than us? Yes, that's what we do. That's what we major on. College football talk and discussion with all of you. We will bring on the best guests we can possibly find. If you have any suggestions, requests of guests, we will go after them. For example, just in the last couple of weeks, Steve Dace a couple times, Phil Steele, who is supposed to get back to us concerning, it was actually his suggestion that he come on again before the football season kicks off. And Peter Burns here in the last couple weeks from SEC Network, and got a conversation coming up later this week with Tony Barnhart, Mr. College Football. Let's hit the silent mode on the phone to make sure. Always getting bothered. Phone calls coming in all morning as I was trying to prepare for this show. So we've got a number of things going on across college football. Couple great discussions on board for today's show involving Ty Hudson, Arkansas, Parker Thune, Oklahoma. We will get to those in a few minutes. And of course, your calls highlight this show. This show is going to be basically three components. It's going to be your calls. It's going to be my rants. And it's going to be guests all over the place that know what they're talking about. That's what we will do. And it's almost football season. Florida State, Georgia Tech. Check out yesterday's show. Of course, we had George from the Renegade Report on to talk Florida State and Georgia Tech. And of course, the Florida State show is every Wednesday at 6 p.m. Eastern Time, where we talked Florida State and Georgia Tech. We will get to the naming winner, and we will get to that as we will run down the names that you provided for the naming recommendations and suggestions for the contest. And the winner will get whatever item of gear from the merch store here at the Voice of College Football as well, which we fail, meaning me on a regular basis, to highlight the merch that we do have for you. Our other hosts do a much better job at that. All right, let's get right to it. We got Ty Hudson on the line from Tusk Talk with Ty, of course. Ty, how's it going, man?
Hey, Mark. Been too long, my man. How are you?
I'm telling you, it has been. You've been spending all that time checking out the Hogs in person.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, up until this week, or they more or less closed it off to the media starting this week. So, yeah, but we got to see, gosh, how many practices? Maybe 14, maybe. I know I missed a day in there somewhere, but yeah, got to see them, got to watch them, got plenty of footage. I've actually been kind of going over some footage a little bit here and there. And yeah, I'm excited to finally see the rubber hit the road, ready for Thursday night, a week from tonight.
Did they shut you out of these scrimmages?
Yeah, they didn't let me in on either scrimmage.
What do we know about these scrimmages?
So the first scrimmage, the offense apparently looked great. Taylor Green, sharp. Malachi, projected backup, looked good. KJ Jackson kind of looked, the typical moving along. We were hearing a lot of good things. Left-hand quarterback, by the way. Don't see many of those come through at Arkansas or anywhere for that matter. But practice number 2, the defense just dominated. Line of scrimmage, it wasn't apparently much of a contest. They batted down something like, I think, 4 passes at the line of scrimmage, which is kind of wild to think about. I don't know exactly how many plays they ran. I want to say something like 150 total. Taylor Green, it's becoming more and more clear. We didn't know at first who was responsible for all these interceptions. They are very hesitant, and I don't think we've got an official count. But it sounds like Taylor Green threw 2 picks in the second scrimmage. one of which was batted down at the line of scrimmage. Malachi threw a couple of picks. I think he also had some passes batted down at the line, but they weren't picked. Maybe I heard that wrong. And other than that, we don't know. And that kind of leads me to believe that either Blake Boda, the Coastal Carolina transfer, or the projected third string quarterback, KJ Jackson, may have had a really rough go of it. We don't know officially. But, yeah, it sounds to me like the offense won, scrimmage won, dominated. I think you could come close to saying that. And then scrimmage 2, the defense won. And you know what, Mark? That's not necessarily a bad thing.
Yeah, the defense was improved last year, and maybe they take another step this year. So what does Bobby Petrino have to say about all of this?
Well, when I listened to him talk yesterday, I was in the middle of still prepping. I did 3 interviews this week. I'm not like the Mark Rogers where I just host guests like every day and all these people, and you're so well organized. I am scatterbrained. I've got to write notes out for all these.
I don't know about the organization part of it, but
but I listened to him talk, and as I'm filling out my script for my next 2 guests that I had coming on, so what I got out of it, obviously wasn't too thrilled about it. I know that he had talked about with Talon Green, he's a sidearm thrower. He throws from the side. His release is almost like shoulder level, like here, and Bobby's mentioned before about being an over-the-top thrower because he's so tall. He's 6'6", maybe inching towards 6'7". Long arms. Ryan Mallett, who was 6'6", 6'7", also when he was here, definitely not as mobile as Green. His release was up top. I can remember Sports Science doing a whole thing about Ryan Mallett's release because he's so long and his release being so far up here. That's what he wants Talon Green to do. And I kind of wonder if that was sort of what Bobby was seeing, was that maybe Talon Green in that second scrimmage was sidearm throwing. He didn't. I mean, I think it's kind of business. I think they expected scrimmage 2 to be a little bit rougher for the offense because the defense, you don't beat them up like that in scrimmage 1 and just think that they're going to come into scrimmage 2, especially those guys, that staff and some of those players. They're going to want to get you back. And I think that's probably what happened. But no doubt, Petrino wasn't thrilled about it. And Sam wasn't too thrilled about it either. As they shouldn't be. But, like I said, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that you had at least one scrimmage, 2 scrimmages where one side of the ball dominated the other. I mean, that could be look, you now have film to go back and say, here's what we did wrong. And we did it wrong multiple times, and now we got to work on it. And you could say that for both sides of the ball from either scrimmage. So I think it's more ammo for them in the film room to get right.
So it's always been my thought that if you need to correct a player's technique, like you need a complete overhaul, not just basically, okay, in your 3-point stance, you need to lean forward a little bit more. You need to be back, and those sorts of things, like just not tweaks. I'm talking about throwing motion for a quarterback, because these quarterbacks, they're obviously successful to a degree, or they wouldn't be the starting quarterback at Arkansas. So it's worked for them to a certain extent in this case. But let's say you have a better way, more conventional way that works, that will avoid batted passes and more conventional. I always thought that the typical approach was, hey, in the spring, we fix such things. Get that done in the spring, because once you get to the fall, you're 2 weeks out. You don't want him thinking about this while he's like got an Alabama defensive tackle in his lap.
Well, fortunately, they don't deal with Alabama this year, but they do still have, name any other team who a couple might actually be better than Alabama this year that Arkansas has to deal with. Texas might be one of them. Ole Miss, watch out. I've been telling people, like, this could be a team. Oh, it's going to be rough. They're going to be good.
Comment time, but people are sleeping on Alabama.
Yeah, well, I just don't know. I don't know what to expect out of them. I really don't. Them and A&M both, and I guess it's the new head coaching dynamic. But I don't know. But I do like what they've done over there. It's always that year one thing that frightens you a little bit. But this is a new era of college football, and if there's anybody you would expect to benefit greatly from a coaching change from moving on from a guy like Nick Saban, or other way around, I guess, it would be Alabama, because I mean the resources, the massive influence they have coast to coast. They can go anywhere in the country and recruit whoever they want. They can go into the portal and grab whoever they want. It feels like this is almost tailor made for a school like Alabama to rebound and be just fine. But yeah, I about going back to Green's dynamic, or just in terms of what he's working on through the camp, I kind of thought the same thing. And I know they're still working with Green about his technique, because he's still sidearm throwing in practice. I brought that up to Mason Choate from hogbeat.com. I had him on yesterday, and we both agreed, like, we saw, like, Taylor Green, this is something we've seen in practice. He's been there. He's still kind of sidearming. So they are still working on that, I guess. Maybe we're looking too hard into it, or maybe not enough. I don't know. I kind of feel like there's a story there. If you're a writer, like, what's going on with Green's throwing technique, and Bobby's already commented on trying to work on it. They also asked him something interesting in his response. They were talking about team identity on offense, and his answer was more or less like, we're still working on it. I don't know what to make of that. I don't know if some of that's just like, we don't want everybody to know that, yeah, we feel really good about our run game, so therefore we don't want, when we play Oklahoma State in week 2, to stack the box against us, because we all know they're not going to show much against UAPB. But we don't want to give our hand away too much. But at the same time, why not respond with, yeah, we know what our identity is, and I'm not going to comment any further, like something like that. Instead, it was more or less verbatim, or not verbatim. It was something like, we're still trying to find it. That's kind of a red flag, if I'm being honest. And again, maybe that's just that part of my brain that's maybe I should ignore. But I've had those instincts before, and I ignored them, and they turned out like I should have brought it up sooner. And then by the end of the year, I'm like, damn, that's what I was thinking at the beginning of the year, and there it is, right in front of our faces. But yeah, there's still, I guess they're still trying to figure out what they're good at, unless again they're just throwing up smoke, which could be the case. And it sounds like too, they're also still trying to figure out Green's throwing mechanic a little bit.
Am I the only one outside the state of Arkansas that is contemplating an Arkansas win in this game against Oklahoma State? I know that they've got to play the first week against Arkansas Pine Bluff on a Thursday. I forgot it was a Thursday. So a Thursday game that I'm sure College Football Nation is just stoked to watch. Who's broadcasting that one? Is that like an ESPN? Well, it's got to be an SEC network game, I would think.
Which one? Oklahoma State?
The Pine Bluff game.
Oh, I don't know. Oh, it's hold on, I do know. It's ESPNU.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
on Thursday night,
there's going to be throngs of people watch that. So anyway, people are going to get a look at Arkansas against Oklahoma State. Yeah, I just I know that they're on different tiers within their own respective conferences, but man, I think Arkansas, I'm going to think long and hard about that one. Do you have any idea what the point spread is on that game right now?
I don't. If I had to guess, it would probably be in Oklahoma State's favor, double digits, probably 13, 10, 13, something like that. Maybe worse, because we do know they have arguably one of the best running backs in the country in Ollie Gordon.
If that point spread is 13 or more, I'm saying right now, give me points. Give me Arkansas.
Well, I'm not a gambler, and we're having our own bit of drama actually in the state about this, about Bet Saracen and all this stuff with the NIL. But I'm not a big gambler. I was telling, who was that? No, Courtney Mims from Pictorial Nation. I had her on yesterday, day before yesterday. And I said, I was raised Baptist, and gambling is a huge, at least around here, up here in Northwest Arkansas, it was like a big no-no, along with swearing and drinking alcohol. You can't do those things. Or they were frowned upon heavily. So I've never been a huge gambler. It doesn't mean I haven't walked into a couple of casinos in my day and my time and maybe bet a little bit on red, but I don't know what that spread would look like. I'm guessing low double digits, but I don't want to give away too much because I'm kind of planning on doing this next week.
Sure.
But I will say I agree with you about Oklahoma State, that this this might not be on. I know at first glance, anybody who's an outsider, who doesn't really pay attention to Arkansas or Oklahoma State, or maybe they just think, because Oklahoma State's had so much success under Gundy lately. Well, I mean, for a while actually, but I know at first glance, it's like, oh yeah, Oklahoma State. I don't know if it's that simple. I'm with you on that. And I'm kind of saving a little bit of the ammunition I have on that game for next week, but I'm with you. I'll just say that. That could be a very interesting matchup. I say next week. I'm going to wait until the week of, I should say, when they play it. I might tip my hand a little bit more next week.
I'm not finding a point spread. I looked at a few different sites.
Yeah, there's not an official one. The UAPB one, if you're looking at it, is insane.
Let me guess. 34.
Last I heard, it's more.
Okay.
It's like 50 points.
Yeah.
I mean, if you're looking at it, you could pull it up. I don't even know where to look, to be honest with you.
Here's my longstanding theory on those kind of games. Once you get past 3 touchdowns, that just stay away from those games. Just don't. We have all sorts of games in the first couple of weeks that are going to be 50-point spreads. Alabama, Ohio State playing whomever and being 50-point favorites. The issue is, once you get to the fourth quarter in these games, you don't know who's going to be on the field. The starters aren't going to be on the field. Yeah. You don't know what the motivations are. Some coaches like to just keep going. Other coaches, no, we'll back off and win by 22. We don't care. You just don't know the motivations. You don't know how the game is going to be called. Oh, we need to work on our passing game.
Yeah.
We don't care if we humiliate them. We're going to keep going. Boom. We'll beat them 72-0. Or no, we're running out the clock. Let's not get anybody hurt. Let's hit the bus as soon as possible, and we'll go home with our 28-point win. You don't know the strategies in the fourth quarter. You don't know the motivations. You don't know who's going to be on the field. You just can't predict any of that in that kind of a lopsided affair. Plus, at places like I just mentioned, the third string guys are still way better than the other team, and they get their chance to play. So they may destroy them in the fourth quarter.
Yeah. Which, I mean, we've seen plenty of times, wow, look at this backup. This guy's 7 for 9 and 150 yards off just 7 completions in the fourth quarter in a mop-up duty situation. I mean, yeah, again, I'm not a huge gambler.
That's a good thing.
I'm not gonna lie to you, I'm interested in it, because we have the app, the Bet Saracen app. I'd like to dive into it because it probably would be good to know and understand it better doing what I do. But I don't ever get asked gambling, probably because people know I'm just not a big gambler and they don't bother to ask. But it rarely comes up. But it is something I need to familiarize myself with. But yeah, Mike, shout out to my administrator who's actually in chat. Lasuzzo Eagle says 52.5 points. Yeah, I guess I probably would stay away from that, right? So that's crazy. 52.5 points is the spread. So you go from that, and then you walk right into the Oklahoma State game where it's like, now you're probably going to be favored to lose this game. Even if that game were at home, you'd probably be favored to lose. But it's going to be a wild year, Mark. I'll just say that. One way or another, there's going to be, I don't want to say entertainment, but there's certainly I'm going to be a busy guy if things go south. Just like we were with basketball when Muss left, and now we've got Coach Cal. I don't know if it'll be quite that magnitude, but anytime you got a coaching change, and like I said yesterday, it's good for what I do. It's good for our business when we have coaching changes, but it's not necessarily the thing that I always want, right? Or that the fans want. But
so I'm not necessarily rooting for Arkansas, but I'm rooting for you, and I'm rooting for your channel. So I guess I root for a big breakout year. They go 8-4, 9-3, then Arkansas fans are going to be happy, and Sam's a hero again, and all that. Or disaster, coaching change, and then you want the coaching change. You want that to last a few weeks at least. There to be a big coaching search, because that produces a ton of content.
Oh my gosh.
You don't want the coach to be hired immediately.
No.
No, you want a big coaching search for a
You
long
want to,
time.
yeah,
A lot
you
of
want to draw
speculation.
out a little bit. Well, the Musk situation did that because it was speculated so early on. And he's rumored to Louisville, which I never bought. I never thought he would leave Arkansas to go to Louisville. 10 years ago, yeah, I could see that, but not lately. Then SMU, and then all these jobs kept kind of opening up, and then the USC job opened, and that's when I was like, uh-oh. And of course, it finally happened. He goes to USC, and then the rumor starts spiraling that it's going to be Coach Cal from Kentucky, and that was incredible. I mean, I realize this is a football channel, but just in
Somewhat.
relation to what we're talking about with football, I mean, yeah, you're not wrong. It's you want it drawn out if you do what I do, but for the sake of Arkansas fans, I think they would want it done quick, right, for the program, and find your guy like that, and everything be a smooth process. But let's, I keep getting ahead of myself. Let's just see what Sam does. I did change my pick. I went from 4-8. I'm now at 6-6.
Ooh.
And I made that announcement last night. Handed out plenty of XP in our Discord over it. But I don't know if that's enough to even keep his job. I mean, there's some that theorize, and I'm talking media people and people who, I'll tell you, they're very well plugged in at the U of A. I'm not going to name names, but they believe that the line is drawn in the sand. It can't just be making a bowl game. It can't be just as simple as getting to 6. It could be, we need you to get to 7 or 8. We need something dug in for the future. We don't just need to be, thank God, like, we did a couple years ago. At least we're bowl eligible. The standards should be at least a little bit higher than that, all things considered. So I don't know what to believe. I have no idea if 6 wins is going to be enough for him to keep his job. A part of me wants it to be, because I don't know that another coaching change or another coaching search, I don't know that you want this revolving door, and that's kind of why you're in the situation that you're in when they walked away from Brett Bielema, and that led you to Chad Morris, and eventually we do get to Sam Pittman, who has had some good too. I mean, it's not like it's all been bad.
All right, Ty, I'm going to put you on the spot for 6 wins here.
Oh boy,
6 wins. Where are these 6 wins coming from?
Yeah, again, this was something I was going to wait to talk about till next week, but
Give us a little flavor.
I'll give you a flavor.
We will do our best to direct everyone to your channel. Go check out Ty's channel, Tusk Talk with Ty. Get on over there. Check it out. It's fun. Even if he gives you a little bit more than he really should right here, still just check out everything over there. It's fun. You can tell this guy loves the Hogs, loves football, loves sports, and he's a great guy. So get over there.
I appreciate that. I can give you like a brief kind of like where I'm at with it. Looking at that, actually I have my schedule in front of me. Obviously, I think UAPB. I'll just say for now, I can't give you where I'm at with some of these. I just can't, because it's kind of like I've kind of been waiting to announce some of the stuff next week.
Okay.
I will say Oklahoma State is interesting. I'll go back to what I said earlier. It's interesting. I'll just say it's interesting. Okay, so UAB, I'm not sold. I know Hugh Freeze, like there's a belief that he might actually his seat might warm up after this year if they can't get things. That's gonna be in Auburn. It's a flex game, so it could be a late night game, a 7 p.m. kickoff, which is not good for Arkansas. You want that thing to be mid-afternoon if you can help it. A&M is interesting. I like Elko. I like him a lot, and I really think that could actually be a great fit at Texas A&M. May not be. It might be either Chad Morris, Mark. We don't know, but I think it's interesting.
Well, I don't want to force you to give too much away. Do you want me to get you to 6?
You could do it. Yeah,
I get you to 6.
Sure. And keep in mind, I'm saying interesting, and you can interpret that however. Okay.
So with a lot of teams across the country, like I throw out the very bottom and I throw out the very elite, because the elite can beat anyone and they're pretty much expected to go 11-1.
Yeah.
But everybody in the middle, I do a lot of groupings of games. Like I look at a group and say, out of those 5, they should win 3. I do a lot of that business. So, of course, they get a win in week 1. All right, for them to get to 6, we'll find out as we go through this schedule, but I think they almost have to win at Oklahoma State. And I actually don't know if they're going to be quite the dog that you think they're going to be. I think they're going to be more of an 8 to 10 point dog in that game.
In which game?
In the Oklahoma State game.
Okay.
All right. So they're going to beat UAB, of course. They have to win that game. So 2-1 or 3-0 right there. Let's go the 3-0 route. They pull off the upset, the mild upset at Oklahoma State. I don't see them winning at Auburn. It wouldn't be a miracle. Auburn is not some great football team. They're coming off a 6-7 season. Their passing game is atrocious. It needs to improve.
Yeah,
incredibly. But and speaking of which, we're going to get to one more point on Taylon Green. Texas A&M, boy, I just think that's going to be difficult.
Okay.
I think Mike Elko, I wouldn't compare him to Chad Morris because he won at Duke.
Fair.
I just think Mike Elko's an exceptional coach. I think I rated him as the best hire this offseason.
Yeah.
But of course, it's going to take him some time to make them anything close to a juggernaut. So I'm going 3-2 at this point. So maybe they lose at Oklahoma State, but they pull off a win at Auburn, or they're able to take on Texas A&M. And we all know from watching that series through the years, played on a neutral site, that many of the games that were not supposed to be close turned out to be barn burners. So we'll go 3-2 at that point. Tennessee, LSU, Mississippi State, Ole Miss. Okay. Out of those 4, they have to go to Starkville and win.
Mm-hmm.
So they're 3-2 before this stretch. Let's say they go to Starkville and win 4-2. They lose the other 3. They're 4-5. And they finish with those 3. So they are going to beat Louisiana Tech to get to 5. So they either go to Mizzou and win, or they stole another one here between Tennessee, LSU, and Ole Miss. That gets them to 6.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I believe that it is absolutely possible that they can get to 6. But it is going to require some very tough, grinded out type of games. And one of the factors, and I realize everybody has this, and I realize everyone's going to be on the same page just in terms of the technology, but the fact that now we have armed arguably one of the top 10, I would argue top 8 offensive minds in college football still to this day, with a tablet and a direct line of communication to his quarterback. That is a big deal. We know, like, maybe the game has caught up to Petrino over the last decade since he was at Arkansas. We know what he did at Louisville and what he produced at Louisville when he went back the second time. He still got it. When he was the coordinator last year at A&M, they did improve in some areas on offense. Arkansas's got a lot of experienced guys back in the receiver room, arguably one of the best tight end rooms in the SEC. I would say top 3, top 4. Top 4, I think, would be the bottom. Like, that'd be their basement, right? I really think this tight end room is stacked. Big question is the offensive line, and that's something that I got out of camp. That I walked out of spring and fall camp going, oh my God, we've got an offensive line depth issue, right? We've got a left tackle issue. If Fernando Carmona, if anything happens to him at left tackle, you're in some trouble, because Josh Street is your backup over there unless they move a Marion Harris, which something Mason Choate brought up, which was just kind of was great moment on the stream, because you see it in live time. We both go, wait a minute, I think we just solved our backup left tackle situation. But right now, I think it's Josh Street projected backup left tackle. There are some weaknesses on this team on both sides of the ball, but again, arming one of the best offensive minds with a tablet and the opportunity to go over things with his staff and his players in between quarters and between series, I don't think that can be overstated. That's a big deal, and that's kind of one of the other things that's pushed me over to maybe they can get to 6. it's going to be tough. And if you ask me their ceiling, I would probably say it's 6. I mean, maybe 7 if someone just gets, someone is riddled with injuries and you catch them on a bad day. But it's going to be tough. No doubt about it. No question about it. It's going to be tough. But I love what's going on the defensive side of the ball. Mark, Landon Jackson, I think, is going to – he came back because he's got unfinished business. He wants to be a first-round draft prospect. I don't know what the record is for sacks in a given season at Arkansas. I think it's 14. And I could have told you had I not brought it up myself. I could have told you who it was that holds that record, but maybe he has set that goal for himself. He's talked about that a little bit, just setting goals, and that's something they're kind of working on as a team. Maybe that's why he came back. I mean, he was probably a 3rd or 4th round prospect last year. I know he dropped for Mel Kiper. Mel Kiper at one point had him as the at one point for about 3 consecutive weeks, he was the first round draft prospect, and he dropped back. So maybe that's why he's back. He wants to get back in that conversation. But what I saw through both camps, it's like all the good that happened in spring camp still was happening through fall camp. That's usually a pretty good sign. So I think they can get to 6. I think this team wants to prove a lot of people wrong. I think they've got, the Arkansas is at their best as a program when their backs are against the wall. They always have been, I shouldn't say always, but they like to be doubted. That it's just in our DNA back when we were in the Southwest Conference and we were the only non-Texas school, and we had to deal with all the trash talk from those Texas schools. And we had a chip on our shoulder. It's just in this school's DNA. And I think something's going to come out of that and something good's going to come out of it. And I think getting bowl eligible will be what they do get out of it. But it's going to be tough for sure.
What you can't do to me, Ty, is you can't bring up some kind of record or statistic from the past, because then it's going to.
Oh, I hear you. No.
Because that's how my mind works.
I'm the same way. I'm analytical too. I get that. I'm all into the numbers and stats. It's what have you done for me lately?
So when you brought up the sacks record at Arkansas, I thought of Jamal Anderson.
Yeah, it's not Jamal.
That came to mind. And I just looked it up. So here we go. Jamal Anderson had 13 and a half.
Yeah.
That is 1 half sack off the pace of the 14 that you mentioned. Tied for the record, Stephen Conley and Henry Ford.
Yeah, Stephen Conley. Yeah, okay. And Conley was the last to do it, right?
Yes.
80.
I didn't have a year there.
I think it was some, yeah, but I remember because I had his card around here somewhere. I had his little Arkansas card, and I remember seeing that, like, I knew he was good. I didn't know he was that good. But yeah, so I think they're on a mission, and I think they want to prove some people wrong. Now, whether or not they get there, it's going to be tough. This is you don't have Alabama, you don't have Georgia on your schedule this year. You don't have Oklahoma, who I think a lot of SEC fans are like, oh, Texas and Oklahoma, they're going to get a taste of the SEC. I think ththey're both going to do pretty well this year. Whatever that is, maybe it's 9 wins for Oklahoma, and of course Texas really could be a 11-1, 10-2 kind of team, but they're kind of walking in at a pretty good time, if you ask me, because at least for their sake. However, you've had a couple of these historically mid-tier SEC teams kind of take a pretty big step up, and of course we're looking at Ole Miss. I think LSU is going to be solid, but yeah, I don't think it's going to be near the, they're going to be lucky to go. I saw someone on Twitter a while back say they're not going to make a bowl game with this SEC schedule, and I'm just like, what? Like, no, they're going to be okay.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm with you. Like, I am an analytical guy. I am a what have you done for me lately? I am. But Sam does kind of embrace the history of Arkansas football, and I think he tries to instill that into his team. And he's talked a little bit about that before in the past. And I hope it's enough to energize this team and, get them ready for a very daunting schedule. Because like I said, no Texas or no Alabama, no Georgia. But then you look, I mean, there are legitimately, and I know you have that schedule up somewhere, you're looking at a possibility of how many playoff contenders. Oklahoma State, probably a playoff contender, right? A&M, the jury's out on. I wouldn't say playoff contender, but you never know. Tennessee, I don't know yet. LSU, maybe. But then you got Ole Miss. Texas, Missouri, those are all playoff contenders. And at least that's the optics right now. And of course, we'll have to wait and see how it all plays out. But it's a tough schedule. 6 is going to be a challenge.
Ty, I don't know if you saw this, but Pro Football Focus came out with its quarterback rankings. And so these are strictly power conference quarterbacks. And so that's 70 quarterbacks at 70 teams. Not that there aren't group of 5 quarterbacks that are better than power 5 quarterbacks, because that's just the way it is. There have been, but they just decided to give us a list of the 70 in the power conferences. They have Talon Green at 49. So that's where he stands. 49 out of 70, according to Pro Football Focus. That doesn't mean that they know what they're talking about, but that's their take on Talon Green.
Yeah, I hadn't seen that. He has multiple 70+ yard runs in his career. If he can improve in obvious passing situations, Razorbacks could have something to work with. Yeah, and one of the things that stood out to me in spring camp was his ball placement is when his timing is down, his ball placement's pretty nice. I mean, it's up and almost to the face mask of the quarterback, and I know that's something Bobby's worked on with him. But then he still had, through spring camp, I think one of the topics was his completion percentages were not great. No, I think through fastball and fall camp, he did pretty well. I know this last fastball we got to watch, he did really well. Looked very poised, looked very sharp, but that's a microcosm. That's just, that's fastball. They get like 4 plays and that's it. So yeah, they could, the only comparison I could make to him for Razorbacks, or for Razorback fans who are kind of curious, and I don't say this with like, how do I want to put this? I'm not saying he's as good as this guy, but the only comparison in terms of size and his attributes is Matt Jones, who is one of my all-time favorite Razorbacks. That guy, what he did here was incredible. I mean, he put the team on his shoulders, and he did so much more with less around him. It's not like he was stuck to the brim in NFL talent at wideout and tight end, and had some good offensive linemen in front of him. But the dude could tuck the ball and run, and it didn't look like he was moving very quick until you saw it in person. Then it was like, is this dude from Mars? And of course we know he goes to the NFL Combine and he drops a 4.37 40. But at 6'6", 242 pounds, if I remember correctly. But I'm not saying Talon Green's that fast, but he could tuck the ball and just move. And I think his passing, I don't know if it's going to be as good or better than Matt's. Matt was not known for being a great passer here. I hope it's better than Matt's, because then now you're talking about having possibly the complete package in a Bobby Petrino offense. I mean, that's something to consider. If and someone said in chat they don't have the Jimmies and Joes, you might be right. Compared to the rest of the SEC, they don't, because the SEC is elite in football recruiting. Arkansas could finish somewhere in the top 25 in recruiting, and that's still only good enough for bottom 4 in this league. But you got a guy like Talon Green, and you kind of build an offense around him again with Petrino, with all the new tech. Petrino talking to him in his ear and drawing up stuff on the sidelines in between quarters and in between series. It could be dangerous. And again, that's kind of what's pushed me to that 6-win total. It's all those things combined. I will come back when you guys are talking about a real football team.
Michael here, 1995 Stephen Conley. So as soon as I saw that, I thought, well, I should have been all over that, because 1995 was the second season I was covering the SEC. I was down in Mississippi. So I saw Arkansas live in person, standing on the sideline against Ole Miss, Mississippi State, and Alabama that year. And yes, I should have been able to put that together, but that's been a long, long time. So when you said Stephen Conley in the 80s, as soon as I saw that name, I thought, oh, Stephen Conley, I know who that is.
Was he in the 90s? He played under.
Yeah, 1995 is what our buddy Michael is telling us there in the chat. And that's the time that I would have been seeing some Arkansas football live.
Yeah, that's right. It was the 90s. I get that era.
Danny
really
Ford
mixed up. Conley? Did you say 84?
I said Danny Ford.
Oh, Danny Ford. Okay, I was like, wait a minute, hold on, who are we talking about? Yeah. He was drafted. I don't remember. I know he ended up. I think he was drafted by the Steelers, if I remember right, and I think he was a fairly like a fourth or maybe a third round draft pick. I vaguely remember him. I swear he was older, but yeah. They had some. That was the thing about Danny Ford. The guy could stack up a pretty decent roster. I mean, he did get him to an SEC championship. Of course, they got frog stomped by Steve Spurrier in Florida, but Ford did do a pretty good job of stacking up a decent roster. And then, of course, Houston Nutt comes in and does a lot more with it. And 2 really good years to start off his time at Arkansas.
From my memory, Danny Ford, yes, he did get to an SEC championship game that year. The SEC West, people might not believe this, who weren't there. The SEC West wasn't very good the first 5 or 6 years of the league.
No,
and I'm guessing that Danny Ford overall was under 500 at Arkansas. I'm going to guess just barely under 500. That's going to be my guess as I'm looking it up. He went 26-30. There we go. So
it was not good.
I hit that one.
It was an uptick from Jack Crow, but he got fired after Citadel, and we thought we'll never do that bad again. And then Chad Morris, along comes Chad, and
who would have guessed that? Because he was hot at SMU.
He was, after he left Clemson as the OC, everyone thought, well, that guy's going to be something special down the road.
He's a high riser trajectory.
Yeah.
I don't know where he is now.
That's a good question. I don't know. I've lost track. I know he went back to high school, and then he was brought on as a maybe not quality control or maybe an advisor role or something, or he went back east somewhere doing that. I thought it was an ACC school. I don't know. I'd like to just never think about him again. Okay. He did provide plenty of clicks for me, but it still was just what a brutal time. Brutal.
Sorry to put you through that. I shouldn't have gone there. Tusk Talk with Ty. That's the place to be. Arkansas football talk right here on YouTube. When is the next live show?
Yeah, I'm trying to see if I can put something together for tomorrow. But if not, probably next week. I certainly want to get at least 1 or 2 lives out of the way before we get to the UAPB game on Thursday. And then, of course, we'll do the post game for UAPB, and we're trying to stack the deck for next week. Not like this week, not 3 days in a row of hour-long guests, but I'm certainly going to try and get something put together before that game. Unfortunately, it's UAPB. There's only so much you can really talk about with this game. It's been talking season drags on for too long. It's like, now let's start the engine and go. So really excited for Thursday night down Little Rock for Arkansas to get things started. And again, I don't think they're going to show people much. I definitely would not buy the 52.5 point spread or whatever. I don't think they're going to show anybody much of anything. And that's another reason why I think this Oklahoma State game could be very interesting.
All right, Ty. Appreciate you being here as always.
Hey, appreciate you having me on, Mark.
We'll see you soon. Thanks, man.
Easy.
Tusk Talk with Ty. It's right here on YouTube. Check it out. All right. Voice of College Football. Of course, this is the College Football Show brought to you by Chris Gates Fitness. Check out his training camp. The link is in the description section of this video and all the videos here at the Voice of College Football.
What's up, everybody? Chris here from Chris Gates Fitness and the online fitness training camp. Thanks for letting me pop in for a few seconds to tell you about what we got going on in training camp this month. And there's a lot happening, okay? The August program dropped just a few days ago. Everybody's getting into their August workouts, having a blast. The private group is full of discussion and chatter about people getting started, which I love to see. We're going to be doing weekly football pick'em here at the end of the month. That's when that starts. I'm going to be giving away free supplements to people who win that. I'm giving away a treadmill in September because we're doing a step count challenge as a group. All kinds of fun stuff coming, so I hope to see you there. Voice of College Football has a discount code, VOICE. You can still get a discount on your first month if you want to jump in. Would love to see you there. Talk to you in training camp.
Folks, this is show number 19 of our new show, the College Football Show. There's a number of reasons why we named it that. Really one. I'll boil it down to one. Hey, we want this to be your destination, your go-to show, the College Football Show. Nothing else needs to be said. So we named it the College Football Show, the College Football Show. So if it's just written the College Football Show, then that's how it would be approached, of course. But, of course, we're going with, let's see, how do I get this is a problem here when I've got a full screen of me is trying to get let's see if we can do this. We're going to see a lot of crazy looks here. Bear with me. I don't know if we can configure this the way I would like it to be configured. I think we've got an option here somewhere. Let's try it. There we go. So our good friend Justin Adams, Nebraska channel, cooked that up for us. The College Football Show. Well, so we hope this is your destination Monday through Friday, 10 a.m. Eastern time, because once the season starts, look out. How in the world are we going to get all that college football talk into 1 hour? Well, the way we do it is your contributions, your support. So please contribute as best you can to what we do. So in no other way do we ever ask for you to contribute financially to the show. However, of course, you go to work, you get paid possibly a salary, possibly per hour. You know how the YouTube game works. We get paid based on all sorts of different things, but it comes down to how many people are watching shows and contributing. So to push it past an hour every day, which I would love to be on here. I could talk college football 5 or 6 hours, especially once the season starts. I could be here talking college football 5 or 6 hours. Unfortunately, got to keep the lights on. So that's the deal moving forward for this show and every show. But we guarantee you that 1 hour all the time. So please support overtime. $100 gets us to the goal line of past an hour, gets us to overtime. We are going to blow out these week 1 games. So we provided a preview on Florida State, Georgia Tech. I'm mighty proud of it. That's kind of a joke. But anyway, the preview is out. If you just want a thumbnail look at Georgia Tech, Florida State, you don't need the deep dive. You don't need the 45-minute breakdown. You don't need to know who plays left guard for Georgia Tech. You want keys to the game. Boom, 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 boom. I gave that to you in about 7 minutes. Check out the video, Florida State, Georgia Tech. The line is 11.5. We will have our prediction later this week. And also, again, we are setting up all sorts of, we'll just call them blowout shows, blowout specials, preview specials. Next week, Georgia, Clemson, Miami, Florida, Notre Dame, Texas A&M, and others. Any big game next week, we will do our best to cover it, preview it, and many of those will be live with your interaction. Talked to Uncle Lou this morning. We believe we're getting together next Wednesday. We're going to bring on a Clemson contingent, Uncle Lou, and we'll all get together and talk some Georgia versus Clemson. That should be a good time. All right, I might as well get to these names because we've got Parker Thune from Oklahoma Insider standing by, and hopefully he'll be here just in the next 5 or 10 minutes to talk Sooners. I got a lot of great questions for Parker Thune, and if you've ever heard him talk Oklahoma football, then you know you need to stick around. I appreciate Mike 3883 and others letting you know, please subscribe to the channel. Please hit the like button. I personally don't care if there's 5 likes or 5,000 likes to any particular video, but the reason I do care, so I would otherwise not care, because of course the online tech industry, big tech, has brainwashed us all into those endorphins being, I believe I'm in the right chemistry, biologically, those endorphins exploding when we see likes. I'm trying to rid myself of such influences. trying to stay off social media as much as possible. Have a healthy mind, body, and soul and spirit. The spirit is perfect, by the way. The spirit is perfect. But anyway, yeah. So yes, the like button. The like button is for the algorithm. So we would appreciate the like. So let's get to this. Hopefully, we will not get interrupted because I've tried this about, well, this is show number 19, about 19 times, or at least about 15 times, where we would like to get to the naming of the show. So what we've got here is I collected these names. So these are the names that you all submitted. Yes, these are the names that you submitted. Let me make sure you can see them fairly well. Your suggestions included Strong Side College Football Show. Don't really know what that deals with. Strong Side. The strong side, the weak side. Got it. Okay. The Voice of College Football Daily Update Training Camp Edition. Woo, that's a mouthful. And obviously, we would have to kill the Training Camp Edition portion of that relatively quickly. The Daily College Football Kickoff with Mark Rogers. Thank you for including my name. Very nice touch. Today's voice of choice. I completely understand and know why you would go in that direction. A lot of people try to play off the voice of college football. Got it. Keep the vocals up. Or alternatively, Mr. Rogers Anti-Maritime Edition. We somehow, after like a 3-hour meeting, decided to pass on that. Drum Major Daily. I was never into marching bands. I do appreciate them, the work that they put in, the talent displayed, and I do like music, but never into marching bands. And we never see the marching bands anymore. Wouldn't it be great? I actually would be fine if there were marching bands. I would have never said that from the time that they ditched the marching bands at halftime and said, we're going to show, and probably none of you remember that except for some old timers like me, remember when they would show the marching bands at halftime on television. And then they started to split it up between kind of half marching band and half studio show. But I would be fine. And I would have never said this before, because once they went to the studio shows and you could see scores and highlights and get analysis, absolutely. But there's something called the internet now. So I don't need, I was about to call them clowns. They're not clowns. It depends who it is. But very informed and very knowledgeable football people at the desk for the most part. However, they don't have enough time to really, and they're trying to watch like 14 games at the same time. So what did they really tell us about the first half? And what do they really tell us about what needs to be adjusted and changed? Nothing. They tell us nothing. These halftime shows are lame. They're horrible. All they do is state the obvious. Alabama leads Kentucky 27-3 at half. Well, Alabama's really rolling. They've got everything clicking. Kentucky's going to have to regroup at halftime, try to find something. Maybe they can find something in the pass game. Great. Thanks. Appreciate that. Great analysis. So the halftime shows are just awful. 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 They're so bad. I don't watch any halftime shows. I'm off to some other game. Get me to another game. I hate when I've got about 4 games lined up and they're all at halftime at the same time. Then I'm like, I'm in the fridge. I'm taking care of business. Something. I'm walking around the block for 3 minutes. I'm doing something other than having my ears bleed listening to the dribble of halftime analysis. It's truly awful. Awful television. And I haven't watched College Game Day in forever. I still believe it to be a great show. I trust that it's a great show because they've got great talent, great producers, great everything at ESPN. They've run amok in terms of managing that company, but in terms of the actual on-air talent and approach, it's pretty spot on. So I trust that it's still a great show, but I got kind of bored and decided to leave that a long time ago as well, like a long time ago. All right, back to this. We've got the smack zone of college football with Mark Rogers. Bring it tough or don't bother calling it with a hot take. A bit wordy, but I appreciate the authenticity. I appreciate the ingenuity. I appreciate the outside the box thinking with that one. I don't believe I've ever used the term smackdown or smack anything in my life. So that's probably not going to happen. Got Mike Anderson stopping by for this one. Mike, thank you so much for the contribution. You've got us $5 closer to overtime. Michigan fan here. What do you think about Oregon asking Ohio State to call them that team out west, begging for a rivalry, maybe? So we think Oregon's going to go that route. Well, Mike, I'm going to guess as a Michigan fan that you were entrenched in Michigan football and the Big Ten. So go online and look up the Oregon-Washington rivalry. Look up the Oregon State, what nobody is allowed to say anymore. Civil War. I will continue to use that term. It's not a big deal. It's a sports term in this way. Civil War. It's not the end of the world to say Civil War. If I say that any more times, YouTube's probably going to come after me, not having any idea why I'm using it. But there's nothing wrong with using that term. It's stupid for people to get all uptight. Anyway, back to your question. Oregon has two huge, enormous rivalries. And I say it that way because I understand what type of audience I'm talking to. A lot of Big Ten fans here. And when people are and fans are siloed, when they are tunnel visioned, just focused on their conference and don't believe anything else exists. And I don't know that that's the case with you, Mike. I'm not saying that, but I know that that's most of college football fans. They're locked in on their team and then their conference, and they don't give much thought to anybody else or anything else and just think, well, all the best rivalries are in our conference and all the best this and all the best that. And they discount everyone else. Well, Oregon's got two amazing rivalries. Now, whether the Oregon State rivalry is going to be in existence long term, I don't know. But I do know this. We've got Parker Thune here to talk some Oklahoma football. So we are glad of that. Parker, how you doing today?
Doing well, Mark. How about yourself?
I am doing just fine. Appreciate you being here.
Mm-hmm.
So let's get right to it with some questions that I've got. And of course, anytime that a 5-star offensive tackle is committed, hey, that's huge news. I don't care what your name is. And Oklahoma, with all this talk about can they compete in the trenches in the SEC? Of course, this does not help them this fall or maybe even the fall of 2025, but long term, it's huge. And it's also a great story, Parker, coming over from Nigeria. Quite the journey for this young man, Michael Fasusi.
Yeah, absolutely. Really awesome kid. He's got an outstanding personality. He's about the right things. Obviously, that's what OU loved about him. That's what so many other schools across the country loved about him. In addition to the fact that he's a very chiseled 6'6", 290, looks exactly like you want the modern left tackle to look like. He's got elite footwork, has a background in soccer, so that's not something you have to hone with him. Real powerful punch, really the complete package. It's the reason he's the number 11 overall player in the country per our national rankings council at rivals.com and the number 2 offensive tackle in the entire 2025 cycle. OU had to play the long game here. They offered Fasusi all the way back in January of 2023, and he had every big offer you could dream of. Alabama, LSU, Michigan, obviously the 2 big in-state schools in Texas and Texas A&M, who were the 2 other finalists in his recruitment. But a seminal victory on the trail for Bill Bedenbaugh when all is said and done, because most regard, as they well should, most regard Bedenbaugh as an elite offensive line coach across the collegiate ranks. And his resume bears that out. You look at all of the outstanding linemen that he's put in the NFL. He's now got back-to-back first-round picks and Anton Harrison and Tyler Guyton at left tackle. But in his entire illustrious career at Oklahoma and previously at stops like West Virginia, Arizona, etc., Beatonbow had never landed a player as highly regarded as Fasusi. Fasusi is the highest ranked offensive lineman to commit to Oklahoma in the modern recruiting era. So I think what thrills Oklahoma fans, what excites them, is the possibility of what Bill Beatonbow might be able to do with a player that has Fasusi's elite tools, elite foundation, because they've seen Beatonbow take 3-star talent in years past and mold those guys into long-term NFL mainstays. How much more so can you do that with a guy that you don't really have to mold? He's already pretty tailor-made for the college game.
Parker is live Monday through Friday at noon to 3 Central Time, and you can also pick it up on the KREF Sports app. And concerning this Fasusi flip here, or not a flip, but it's just a commit, OU Insider is the place to be on Rivals for Parker's work, and I'm sure a lot of great information. Again, it's a pretty fascinating story and journey of someone who knew nothing about American football or anything just 5 years ago to rise to the top of the sport at the high school level is pretty fascinating. All right, Parker. Also, of course, a couple of weeks ago, the news came down about Jaden Gibson, of course, out for the season, a wide receiver who, in reviewing his numbers from last year, is pretty impressive what he put together down the stretch and scoring touchdowns against some pretty good competition, finishing with 5 touchdowns, 14 catches. We know that the wide receiver room is strong. Does it take any type of hit, and how does it get reshuffled because of Gibson's injury?
Yeah, well, you look at the stat line for Gibson last year, only 14 catches, right? But that alone really doesn't tell the story of the impact he had on this offense, because he was a big play machine. Anybody that watched Oklahoma consistently throughout the course of the 2023 season could see and feel that whenever Gibson made a play, it was a big one. It was an impactful one. It was a consequential one. Every single one of those 14 catches was a huge one for Oklahoma. He was making a tangible impact on the outcome of the game every single time he touched the football, and he was a guy that got looks in big moments. Now, as things stand right now, best case scenario for Gibson going into the 2024 season, he was no higher than 5th on the depth chart at wide receiver for Oklahoma, which is kind of crazy to think about. A guy that was so productive in such a limited capacity last year and has a 6'5" frame, electric speed, really everything you could ask for in one of those plus size modern wide receivers. A guy like that could be no higher than 5th on the pecking order at wide receiver, but that's reality. The Sooners bring in Purdue transfer Deion Burks. They bring back Nick Anderson, who was in most statistical categories their most productive receiver a year ago, had 10 touchdown catches. Andrell Anthony was the most productive receiver for this program over the first 6 games of last season before sustaining an injury against Texas. And then Jalil Farouk is a 2-year going on 3-year starter for this program at wide receiver. So they are not devoid of weapons by any means. And look, what happened to Gibson is unfortunate. Nobody wishes that upon him. But by the same token, you can acknowledge that and also acknowledge that Oklahoma would tangibly miss his presence much more if he played pretty much any other position but wide receiver, because they are just so deep at that position. They got rising sophomore Jaquez Petaway, who was a former top 100 overall recruit in the country, a couple of speed demons in Brennan Thompson and Zion Raggins. And Thompson made several big plays down the field last year, including a 60-plus yard touchdown catch in that room with J.J. Hester, a Missouri transfer who's going into his 5th year of college football, as well as true freshman Ivan Carrion, a 6'6" native of West Texas. So there are plenty of pieces there at the wide receiver position. Obviously, you'd rather have Gibson than not have Gibson, but Oklahoma should be able to continue operating effectively and efficiently through the air in his absence. No question about that.
Parker Thune, OU Insider. It's also KREF Sports, Monday through Friday, noon to 3 Central Time. Any indications that things are being figured out along the offensive front, the main concern going into 24?
Yeah, and I think we discussed this the last time I jumped on with you, Mark. The question for Oklahoma really isn't about the individual talent level of all the various components on that offensive line, because you do have a bunch of guys that have played a lot of football, whether at Oklahoma or elsewhere. The Sooners brought in 5 transfers in the offseason, and so they have some very experienced, very talented football players on the offensive line. The question becomes, how do they gel? How do they cohere as a unit? Because if you have 5 individually strong offensive linemen, that's great. That doesn't mean you're going to have good offensive line play, because they have to learn to operate collectively as a unit. And that's been a difficult thing for Oklahoma to really establish throughout fall camp, because they've had guys banged up. Branson Hickman, the transfer center from SMU, has been banged up. Jake Taylor, whom I would project to be Oklahoma's starting right tackle, he's been banged up. Troy Everett, the Appalachian State transfer, who made several starts at guard last season for Oklahoma, he's still working back from an injury he suffered in the spring. Josh Bates, real exciting interior player that the Sooners are high on going into his redshirt freshman year. He's been banged up, among others. So there hasn't been a ton of continuity on that offensive line throughout fall camp. And so that has kind of contributed to the big question mark for Oklahoma. Of course, the offensive line remaining static, remaining constant through fall camp. I wouldn't say you have less questions about the offensive line than you did going into fall camp, which is obviously not best case scenario for Oklahoma. Bill Bedenbaugh is the type of guy that you trust to figure it out, but it would certainly seem as though for the first couple of games of the season, throughout non-conference play, the Sooners are going to have some things to figure out up front, just because they haven't really been able to establish any continuity in terms of the 5 guys that are playing alongside one another on the first team up front through fall camp.
Parker, as you know, we've got a number of team channels that we have here at the Voice of College Football. So I'm gonna tap your knowledge to take us elsewhere. So Dillon Gabriel obviously moves on to Oregon. A lot counted upon him to produce a huge season. Pro Football Focus named him the 2nd best quarterback in college football, and I think that there's a disparity between what the statistical expectations are because of the offense. And we saw what Bo Nix did with that offense. And now he's the named starting quarterback with the Denver Broncos, versus what the physical capabilities are and projection toward the NFL, where I'm looking at Phil Steele and a 19th rated quarterback projection toward the NFL. So What is Oregon getting? What can we expect of Dillon Gabriel? Can he lead this team to a national championship?
I certainly think he's capable of doing that, Mark. And look, Dillon Gabriel probably is not anything more than a long-term NFL backup, which is fine. You can make a lot of money as a long-term NFL backup. But, I think it's very obvious to anybody that's watched Dillon over the years that his game has a ceiling. It's somewhat limited by what he is and who he is physically, and that's fine. It doesn't take away from what he is at the collegiate level. He's an outstanding college quarterback. And there's a reason why going into his 6th year, he's getting heavy buzz as a potential Heisman Trophy candidate. It's because he's so smart. He's so accurate with his short and intermediate passes. Deep balls, I'm sure Oklahoma fans would tell you, they'd be more than willing to tell you that deep balls have been a little bit inconsistent for Gabriel, at least throughout his duration of time as a Sooner. But Dillon Gabriel is exactly what the doctor ordered for that Oregon offense, because not only is he an incredibly cerebral talent, he's a great leader. He's well respected in whatever locker room he's been in. He's mobile. He's going to make the right decisions with the football. He's going to avert turnovers. And when you look at everything he's done, his entire body of work, both at UCF and at Oklahoma, I think what you see is a guy that is the straw that stirs the drink in any particular offense. He's not a superstar. He's not the guy that's going to put the offense on his shoulders. But as the trigger man in an offense with a strong O-line and good weapons at the skill positions, Dillon Gabriel is capable of performing on a level that is at the very least equal and perhaps even superior to just about any other quarterback you could throw in a system like that. I think Dillon Gabriel is still, even though he is picking up Heisman buzz, I think he is severely underappreciated nationally across college football. And I am of the belief that he's going to have a renaissance season up there in Eugene, building off what he did at Oklahoma the last 2 seasons, looking ahead to 2024 and everything that Dan Lanning is going to surround him with. Assuming he stays healthy, there's no reason why Dillon Gabriel shouldn't be in New York City at season's end. He's also just, if you've spent any time around him, he's a really easy guy to root for, just an incredible human being. And so he's one of those people that you hope is in New York City at season's end, because he deserves it, man. He's paid his dues, and it's going to be real exciting to see what he does as a Duck.
So I'm going to throw this angle at you, knowing that you covered Dillon Gabriel for 2 full seasons every day versus this other guy just being a chief competitor. But now that they are almost odds-on favorites to win the Big Ten and compete for a national championship, you got Will Howard going from Kansas State to Oklahoma. How do you make that comparison?
Yeah, look, admittedly, I haven't seen a ton of Will Howard, at least up close and personal. We've all watched games on TV, watched the tape, all that good stuff. But I truly don't know how many quarterbacks in college football I would take over Dillon Gabriel to run an offense, because, again, he's just so experienced. He's so intelligent. He's such a good leader. He is everything you want at that position, short of an absolute rocket arm. And that's okay. You don't need to have a rocket arm. You can make it work without one, as Gabriel has proven. I mean, some of the balls that he's thrown at Oklahoma over the past 2 seasons, I remember in particular, there was one throw in the final drive against Texas, the drive that culminated in the touchdown pass to Nick Anderson in the corner of the end zone to win the game. But there was one pass where he threw a comeback to Jalil Farouk along the right sideline. And if you watch the play back, the ball just hangs in the air forever, Mark. And in real time, it felt like minutes that ball was in the air. But he'd thrown it with such precision and thrown it with such anticipation that it really didn't matter, because Farouk turned around at the top of his route. The ball was right there. So that's Dillon Gabriel, man. He's so good at playing within himself. He knows his limitations. He knows what he is. He doesn't try to be something that he's not. And again, that's why I think he is poised for so much success at Oregon in 2024. So to answer your question, all respect to Will Howard, all respect to the other great quarterbacks across college football, but there are very few, if any, that I would rather have than Dillon Gabriel in 2024.
I'd like to get your quick takes on these 3 guys coming out of the Oklahoma backfield. So we got Tyree Walker now at Wisconsin, Marcus Major at Minnesota, and Dalen Smothers at NC State. Just kind of a brief, what are those teams getting?
Tyree Walker is the quintessential Wisconsin running back. That is such a perfect fit for him. He is the epitome of a bruiser, downhill dude. He's only about 5'9", but bulky, muscled up, north of 225 pounds. He is going to hit you in the mouth. Very rarely are you going to get him down with first contact. He's generally going to bust through a couple arm tackles before you're able to get him to the ground. Tyree Walker was a really, really fun guy to watch at Oklahoma the last couple of years, and I think he's a very natural fit for what Wisconsin historically likes to do in the run game. Marcus Major at Minnesota, he's a guy that was so highly touted coming to Oklahoma. In-state product, went to Millwood High School up in Oklahoma City, just never really panned out. And it wasn't for lack of opportunity, because he had a lot of runway at Oklahoma to make an impact in the running game. Just didn't really happen. He averaged 3.9 yards per carry last year. So if it works out for Marcus Major in his 6th year of college football, great. But that's not a guy that I think Minnesota fans should have terribly lofty expectations for. And then, I'm sorry, who was the third? Remind me.
Dalen Smothers.
Dalen Smothers. That's right. Yeah, Dalen Smothers was a guy that he was one of a select few that Oklahoma was legitimately bummed to lose in the offseason. He's a North Carolina native, went back closer to home for an opportunity to see more playing time, which you can't fault him for. He showed a lot of promise last year on the practice field and in spurts when given the opportunity to perform on Saturdays. So you'd imagine he's a handcuff back at NC State, at least to start, going into his sophomore year. But long-term, Dalen Smothers can provide a nice dimension to that Wolfpack offensive attack. No doubt about that.
Okay, we're just 8 days away. Temple visiting Oklahoma. It's a Friday night game, folks, next week. Parker Thune. Parker, let everyone know where they can find you.
Yeah, download the KREF app if you're a Sooner fan and want to stay up to date with all things in the world of OU athletics. Live programming, 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every weekday, and you can find all of my insider work at ouinsider.com on the Rivals Network. You want the scoop on what's going on behind the scenes for the Oklahoma football program. You want comprehensive coverage of their recruiting efforts. That's where you're going to find it. Not just limited to football coverage either as well. Right now, we've got basketball scoop on our board that nobody else in the industry has, among other things. Softball coverage, everything you're going to want if you're an OU fan, it's going to be there for you at ouinsider.com. We are the best for intel in the market. I'll stand on that. So hope you come and join us. Right now, you can get 60% off your annual subscription if you use promo code KICKOFF2024 at sign up at ouinsider.com.
Parker, thank you so much for stopping by. Always appreciate the conversation.
Not a problem, Mark. Take it easy. We'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. Thanks, Parker. Parker Thune, OU Insider. So I saw some conversation there in the chat concerning transfer quarterbacks who have won a national championship. One transfer quarterback. So we're talking about during the college football playoff era, or are we talking about before that? Joe Burrow, of course, in 2019, going from Ohio State to LSU. Jake Coker. Let's not forget about Jake Coker. He was a quarterback at Florida State, transferred to Alabama, won the national championship in 2015. And then if we go previous to that, obviously the transfer portal and transfers in particular were uncommon prior to that. Cam Newton. I don't know that he ever... Yeah, he would have been a Florida quarterback that transferred to Auburn and won the national championship in 2010. I don't know that Cam Newton ever threw a pass at Auburn, but he was on scholarship. He was enrolled. He had gear. He was probably in practice at Florida and transferred to Auburn. And again, Jake Coker was a Florida State quarterback who almost beat out Jameis Winston in 2013, or was it 2014? Well, it would have been 2013 prior to Winston breaking out to win the Heisman as a redshirt freshman. Redshirt, so 3 transfer quarterbacks back to 2010. I doubt if there's anyone before that. Can't imagine anybody transferring before that would have won a national championship. I can't think of anyone. So I'm coming up with 3. So there we go. Josh Heupel, where did he transfer from? I do recall that. So Billy J86, good call from you. So I guess we're up to 4. I do recall that Heupel was a transfer in 2000. So he won the championship at Oklahoma in 2000. I believe was the starting quarterback in 1999, Bob Stoops' first year at OU. Don't remember where he came from. Where did Heupel? Oh, junior college. Yeah. So Ralph, I thought of Stetson Bennett as well, but I guess I drew a line there. Yeah, Stetson Bennett, Georgia. Then he left and he went to, was it junior college or an FCS, and then back a couple times there. I was actually, okay, technically, yes, I thought of Stetson Bennett as well. Yeah, so we've had we can technically go to 5 there, but during the college football playoff era, it would be Coker and Burrow. All right. Appreciate the contribution coming in from Nick. Nick, vacate Iowa 2023 wins, save the sport's integrity. Sure. Yeah. Absolutely. Sure. Yes. We know who Nick roots for. So Nick's working all the angles. Any angle he can get a hold of, Nick's going to work that angle. So, all right. Again, this is all about my rants, your calls, and great guests every day, 10 o'clock Eastern time. And we would love this show to be as long as possible, but that's up to you. So we appreciate it. Thanks for being here today. We do a prediction show tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern time. I'm going to be here delivering my predictions. Nick, please don't watch. You will be sorely disappointed or enraged or something, or amused or something. So maybe watch. 9 p.m. Eastern time, right here at the Voice of College Football. Predictions from me. Predictions weekly from me. Steve Dace, Steve Merrill, Matt Zemek. So make that a part of your college football recipe this year if you want to benefit from the games. This is not for everyone, but certainly check it out. College football is even more exciting with some action on the line. And the games are even better when you're cashing in. And the Voice of College Football is the place to be to get the greatest value. Let's start with my picks. 75% against the money line, 58% against the spread. I've got a 40-year track record. In fact, in 2023, at $100 played per game, you would have netted over $9,300. And guess what? I'm just the warm-up act. Steve Merrill, our ace in the hole, show stopper from Wager Talk. 6 years with the Voice of College Football, over 30 years in the industry. Steve gives us analysis on all the big games, but you can't miss Steve's weekly under-the-radar pick, which went 21-5 against the spread the last 2 seasons. I repeat, 21-5 against the spread. You also get picks from some of our top analysts here at the Voice of College Football, including Steve Dace and Matt Zemek. Become a YouTube channel member or Patreon member for just $99 per month. Go to the main channel on YouTube, click join, and select the betting tier. Do the same thing on Patreon. Make 2024 a winner now.